I hope you all are excited. I was able to float in the background for both the getting started session and the next steps, and the questions and the interest in international experience has been truly inspiring. So I'm really happy to have this rock star panel with me for this closeout session. We have Greg Marchand, Raphael Moffett, Torian L, and Naphtali Bryant. So before we get into it, just gonna have you all just introduce yourselves, as Ruby mentioned, and quick, quick, quick intro of who you all are. So let's start with you, Torian.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this important event. Again, I wish we had this many moons ago when I was an undergraduate at Virginia State. So I graduated from Virginia State University. I was a professor at Elizabeth City State University for a number of years in criminal justice and in the history department. Most recently left Xavier University of New Orleans or Louisiana, where I was the senior international officer. So at each of the institutions in which I've worked, I've also been the dean of students at Capital University Law School, PWI in Columbus, Ohio. Each of my positions, I've had different levels of engagement with global education. And so it's, I can get into later my path, but basically I fell into this career. I'd never been abroad in my life when I joined the administration at Capital University Law School, but in my portfolio was the international student program. And so on the one side, receiving the students and making sure they had the proper accommodations, and making sure they were adjusted to U.S. life. And these were like 18-year-olds coming from Germany, where typically the U.S. law student is 21, right? And so then we would send students to both Greece and Germany. And so my path started from there, and I got my chance to do my first Fulbright scholarship, International Education Administrator Seminar. And in my project statement, I talked about having this responsibility for the ebb and flow of students to Germany, not knowing much about why my students were 18 and what the system of higher education looked like in Germany, and wanting to be able to serve my students better when they went to Germany as law students. And so it worked, and I got the opportunity to go to Germany for about 3 weeks and visit many institutions of higher education and government officials in charge of education to learn a lot more, to be supportive for my student group back in the United States. And so from there, at each institution, I've built up my role, and currently I'm the International Education Director here at Norfolk State University, Norfolk, Virginia, one of 4 HBCUs here in Virginia, the alma mater of my parents. And, and so I'm happy to be back home in my birth city. So I can talk later about specific questions. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Torian, for that. And we'll go over to you, Raphael.
Hello. I hope all is well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling in from in the world. My name is Raphael Moffett. I'm the Chief Student Affairs Officer at the Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China. And Schwarzman College is a 1-year fellowship program, fully funded fellowship, where students can get a master's in global affairs. And really, there's 3 pillars: leadership, a deep understanding of China, and global affairs. I've been in student affairs for 22 years. I've worked at 4 HBCUs, Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta, Langston University, and I was the vice president for student affairs at Texas Southern and Langston University, 2 PWIs, Georgia State University and Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. And then the past 5 years, going to my 5th year, I've been in China, where I worked at Duke Kunshan University, which is a joint venture between the city of Kunshan, right outside of Shanghai, and Duke University. They created a brand new undergraduate program, and I got to be the chief student affairs officer, dean of students there to really start a university. And it was fascinating how many times we get to do that. So I really enjoyed that. And now I'm at Schwarzman, where I oversee the co-curricular aspects of the college, residence life, careers, programming, student mobility, student health in various aspects. So really excited to have this conversation, but I'm a lifer in higher education. Student affairs chose me, and I just stayed on the path, and it took me overseas. So I'm really excited to have a conversation about how we can get Black men in global leadership and in these spaces to thrive and flourish.
Thank you for that, Raphael. Naphtali.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Well, first, thank you all for being a part of this panel. These guys are amazing. Let me see if I can make my life as interesting as theirs. So my name is Naphtali Bryant. I'm currently the Child Care Scholarship Coordinator of United Way of San Antonio and Bexar County. My actual international journey really kind of started with my mother. Between my mother and my father, they've visited 50 countries. My mother went to 44. She was a civil servant, and part of her role was to just go around different countries and build commissaries at first, and then she matriculated from there. I actually got started in 2013. A professor at Palo Alto College here in San Antonio signed me up for a business competition. That business competition we wind up competing within 11 weeks. It was an international business competition, and we won third place out of 18 teams representing 23 countries. What made it so significant was our teacher, after the business competition, decided to take our actual business plan and make it into a study abroad program. So the study abroad program I went to, it's called the Alamo Way in Asia with the Student Leadership Institute. I was the only student both on the team and to be able to go to Asia. So it was a life-changing experience to know that something that was in me that somebody basically forced me to do that I didn't know existed started, and I was able to take advantage of that opportunity. Not only that, my son, I thought it was so interesting, Marcus King from Prairie View University, my oldest son actually studied abroad with Prairie View University. So I thought that was kind of cool in the last panel that we were in to talk about. Since then, I've been able to, even though my current role is local, I've been in the Alamo College's international programs in and out. The biggest thing that I was able to do was literally on a Thursday via LinkedIn, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Nothing." They said, "Hey, can you come and teach 76 students from Mexico about international program stuff?" I was like, "Yeah, when can I do it?" They said tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So between 12 noon and 8 o'clock the next morning, not only did I sign an actual vendorship, so I became a vendor of the Alamo Colleges, I wound up the next day to two groups. There were 76 students total, most of them from Monterey Tech in Mexico, which is kind of like the MIT of Mexico. I was able to teach them on international business, entrepreneurship, that type of thing, but the curriculum was all mine. And then from then, I've just been asked to do things like this out of the blue. I've had a very, I can't even call it luck anymore. It's just pure favor life, to where all the international opportunities I've had, they've come to me. That all started when I said yes in 2013. So one of the things I tell students is, especially Black men, is sometimes you got to say yes and then ride the yes until it stops saying yes. I've been able to have what I call international pregnant opportunities. They keep birthing other opportunities. So I'm just glad to be here and glad to be a part of this discussion.
Oh, we're going to have some nuggets in this session. I love that. I love that so much. Let's have Greg Marchand join us. You're muted. You're muted, Greg.
Okay.
Okay. You have to unmute again.
Greg, you're still muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay, sorry, it was telling me to stay on mute. So, sorry, I can't put the background on. I'm on my phone, but just to introduce myself, my name is Greg Marchand. I was connected with the network through James Ham. We met in Zambia when he was at CDC here. So, I'm a graduate of Morehouse College, originally from Houston, Texas, and Chicago, and when I was a senior at Morehouse, they brought 25 students to visit American companies. They do this every year, and I got a chance to go to Brazil and South Africa. And the CEO of Citibank South Africa told me in Johannesburg that I was wasting my degree going back to the United States to work there, and that I should stay there and work in South Africa. And she happened to be from North Carolina. So I actually ended up going back for a couple of months after I graduated. But then I went to work in the United States for about 8 years at Deloitte Consulting and as a management consultant. But when I was 29, I realized that woman at Citibank South Africa, the CEO for Citibank South Africa, was right. I felt like I was wasting my degree in my life, just staying and kind of doing a regular job. And so I took leave of absence from Deloitte in 2004, 2005, and I traveled around Southern Africa looking for a country where I could start a business and live. So I started my first business in Zambia in 2005, 2006. I failed at the first business. The second business I started was in 2010. 2012, I started a third business. It was successful enough, and I'm still doing that business. And I'm a co-founder of a company called Enriching, and we do like people transformation and digital transformation in Africa. We do a lot of work with USAID, CDC, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but also with the telecommunications companies in Africa. I'm the founder of the Zambian Business Angels Network here in Zambia, and I'm also a senior advisor for Harvard University's Startup Accelerator in Africa. Before this, I was a faculty member at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, so I got a chance to go back and forth between Africa and teach MBA students how to do business in Africa. I've also had a chance to speak on how to do business in Africa at Harvard University, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill MBA programs, Wharton's MBA program, Cambridge MBA programs. I'm also one of the representatives for the Africa CEO Forum, and I love hosting African Americans on the continent to learn how to do business and learn how to develop careers over here. And I'm a very active angel investor, so I invest in plant-based products, invest in fintech products here on the continent, and just really happy to open doors for people of color from the United States who want to do business in Africa.
Thank you for that, Greg. So as you all can see, we have some heavy hitters on this panel. So thank you all for being here today. So the first question I have, we often talk about our defining moment, right? Like for me, I served in the Peace Corps in Rwanda, and growing up in Brooklyn, New York, just having that experience completely changed my world, my perspective, and how I saw things. So for you all, like, what was that defining moment that led you to an international career? And we could pop. So whoever wants to go first can go.
Yeah, I'll jump out there and be brief so brothers on the panel can speak. I think for me, it was when I was a graduate student at Clark Atlanta, and I wanted to do study abroad. I didn't have a chance to do it undergrad at Washington State, and the dean of the school had a connection with the program to allow me to switch out credits from the graduate program and go do them in Brazil. So I had a chance to study abroad in Bahia, Salvador, Brazil, and it completely changed my life. It was Black, a lot of people from the continent there, and it just opened me up to, this is a big world out here, and there's a lot of Black people all over the world, well beyond the scope of what I can conceptualize. And from that moment on, I was like, I need to be overseas. I didn't know where. I didn't suspect, Asia. But it really opened me up to, we are all over the world, and there are things that we can do and we can contribute. And I said this in the breakout, and we can have a quality of life that is very different than the one that, we just grow up understanding or conceptualizing. And from that moment on, I was like, anytime I can get on a plane, and my favorites, I would do it anytime I can get on the plane. And one of my favorite sounds is when they stamp my passport and I got access into any country. Like, I got addicted to that sound, and I haven't stopped trying to get stamps on my passport yet.
Awesome.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. Raphael, I can concur. I haven't been to as many countries, but there's something different. There's a different swag you have when you have passport stamps and not food stamps. I think mine was actually on the Great Wall. So we climbed to a portion of the Great Wall that was so high that at some point there was no longer any wall. There was just cement blocks. Got to the top of this spire, could barely breathe because it was so high. But not only that, it had jasmine trees around it. It was real strong. Barely breathe. I'm sitting there trying to catch my air. And then I kind of look up, and it kind of hit me that I was on the Great Wall. And I think what made it so significant was I was supposed to be a statistic. I failed an Algebra 2 test my last day of my high school year, so I wasn't a high school graduate on time. 2 weeks later after that, I had my second son, so I was basically a teenage father. So I'm supposed to be either working a dead-end job or be in jail. That's what I'm supposed to be by regular standards. So then when I'm looking around and realize not only did something in me get awakened and bring me here, but I led that international business team, but it affected students I didn't even know. I met those students in China. So to know that there was something so powerful in me that it not only blessed me, it blessed people I didn't know and took us both to somewhere we've never been, to a place that high up. When you're on the Great Wall and you realize it's the eighth wonder of the world, I told myself I'm never coming down from here. So if we're not having high level, global, bigger than just my local zip code conversations, I don't know if it's supposed to be a part of me, or if I'm supposed to be a part of that, because it's not up to my standard. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, once you start traveling abroad, your standards rise. Sometimes the people around you can't take it, and sometimes they can, depending on, your type of situation. But the epiphany for me was sitting on that Great Wall and realizing a guy that's supposed to be a statistic is experienced something that has been in existence for centuries. And if they take my degree, if they make me pay the money back, they can never take that experience from me. And I hold on to that to this day.
Powerful. Thank you.
Okay, this is Torian. I can jump in for a second here. So, I mentioned my first position and having some ties to global education at the law school. My next position when I was at Elizabeth City State University as a faculty member, Elizabeth City State's part of the UNC system of schools, right? And so the general administration said every institution in the system had to have an international or global education program because the state's goal was to be the most globally engaged state in the nation. And so the provost sort of picked me to do this because of my work at Capital University. And so I learned quickly. So at the previous institution, there were maybe a handful of Black students at the school, right? And so now I'm at Elizabeth City State University, and the majority of students are African American. So you look at all the other UNC schools and they're the PWIs and the prowess of their global education programs. When I'm in the meeting with the other directors around the system, I can see the inequity with respect to these opportunities, the foundation that, the lack of a foundation laid for students to even consider things beyond the state of North Carolina. And so, as a law student, I wanted to be a civil rights attorney because it mentioned the UN sustainable goals. We want to, promote equality in the world. So I'm taking that and shifting it towards development for African Americans who are looking to figure out what's going on in the world and navigate their career path, right? So I took it upon myself to get involved with all the organizations to tap the brains and programs from all the other UNC schools to try to give some level of equality for my Elizabeth City State students to the UNC Chapel Hills and Greensboros and Wilmingtons and all the big schools. And so my plight since then, working at Xavier and now Norfolk State, I see the same thing. The majority of students are Pell eligible, meaning their parents can't afford, they have to get an extra grant just to attend school, let alone save money and have pocket money to travel and then, coexist with the other students from around the United States who are typically white and female and from affluent families. And so, more than just the global bug, I've gotten the personal dedication towards equalizing or diversifying international education through my experience, both traveling and not seeing many of us, but occasionally seeing folks and learning from them and expanding my knowledge of what Black men are doing in the world, but also coming back to my home community, seeing the inequities and wanting to make a change. So I'll be quiet.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, maybe I can also jump in with, obviously, I talked about my first epiphany was when the CEO for Citibank South Africa told me that I was wasting my degree coming back to the States. But 8 years later, when I was at Deloitte Consulting, I was on a project at MCI WorldCom, and I looked up above my cubicle and I saw just rows of cubicles until I couldn't see them anymore. And then I looked to my left and I saw another rows, and just to the wall, infinity of cubicles. And I asked myself, is this it? Is this all I'm going to do? You know, I was 29. I had a great degree. I had this great experience. But I thought, am I going to end up back where I started, which is at a cul-de-sac in the suburbs, working a job when I used to see my dad come home, a job he wasn't really excited about, but just to put food on the table. So I decided that there was more I could do with my life. And I decided to take a leave of absence and go back and figure out in Africa, you know, what was my God destiny? You know, what was that God seed that I was supposed to grow in myself? Because remember, the reward of what you do is not what you get, but what you become. So I thought, what was going to be the greatest use of this life that God gave me? And I figured out it was being a business owner in Africa and figuring out how to build bridges between the United States, especially the diaspora community, and the African continent. So, you know, once you get on your life mission, you notice you have a different level of energy that allows you to do things that you would normally not do.
I still love this. And that was powerful, Greg. I think I'm a fervent believer of following your purpose. Something that Ruby and I often talk about is just because you decide to pursue your purpose or impactful life doesn't stop life from lifing, right? Doesn't stop things from happening to you. So can you share some unique challenges you all face as Black men to get to where you currently are and how you overcame that?
I can jump out. So I too received the Gilman. So I received the Gilman. I studied abroad in 2015, and I received the Gilman, if I can remember correctly. I applied for it in October of 2014. I didn't get it till February of 2015. I literally got it 2 weeks later. My mom says, I need to talk to you and your brother. Stage 4 cancer. Now, she told me stage 1, but it was actually stage 4. So mind you, I had already gotten this great opportunity, historic opportunity, to not only study abroad, but to go see what my potential was, as Greg said earlier. And I was like, I can't go. You have cancer. For all I know, I could be 12, 14, 15 hours away and you die. And by the time I get back, they've already buried you, right? And she said something that was so powerful. She said, I thought you said you wanted to take our family's generation to the next place. I said, yeah, I do. She said, you will be the only person in a family of military people, which means my family kind of traveled a lot, to be able to touch the ground in China. Nobody in the history of our family has ever done that. So you just going changes our family dynamic. It was brave enough to not know if she was going to be there when I got back. That was the biggest challenge. Can I go? Can I enjoy it? Can I learn? Can I observe and be okay with coming back to her not being there? That was my biggest challenge. And when I was able to brave that, everything else was simple.
I'll jump in there, and Brother Bryant, that was powerful, man. I'm a cancer survivor, so I completely understand all of the dynamics around that. I think three things that are a challenge, I think, for Black men that want to ascend in whatever in the international space or whatever. I would encourage brothers that want to get overseas or anywhere else to seek out leadership. And not for prestige, not for the parking spot, not for any of that, because in leadership, you earn your fair share of scars and stars to, be able to make some decisions and affect, positive change in whatever industry you're in. But I think leadership really gives you an opportunity to set a culture, create a culture around any space you're in. And once you get overseas and do that, people will want you to do it over and over and over again, and opportunities will be at your fingertips. Or if you want to work at HBCUs or what have you. So I really encourage brothers that say, well, I want to have opportunity and access and options leadership is the way to go. Now leadership is not for everybody. So my greatest challenge is that I knew pretty early on I wanted to be a vice president for student affairs. I didn't know when I got my first vice presidency exactly what to do, but I knew I wanted to get there and I wanted to hone those skills. And once you get on a trajectory, people will help you if they know that you're serious about it. The other thing too, I think that we don't talk about enough is really understanding what the family dynamic needs to look like if you want to work overseas or do things overseas or domestically. I think, there needs to be a lot of serious conversations with your family, nuclear and otherwise, about what that looks like, how that impacts them, because it ultimately impacts you and what you're trying to do too. So there's this professional personal balance that I have to strike, and I didn't always do it well. And so I've had to learn how to do that over the years, but really seeking out leadership, trying to make sure that the family dynamic is something that I was contributing to and that they understood the vision of where we wanted to go are two very important things about my trajectory and story that I feel like is pretty important. And the last is mentorship. If you're trying to do anything on your own, it's a long, long road. So I had to learn how to be a good mentee and then transition to being a good mentor for other people, other brothers that really wanted to do the work and ascend, and realize that everybody doesn't want to be successful. And I had to reconcile that, for brothers that want to be successful, I'm going to walk with them. And the ones that don't want to do the work, I'm always going to be here for them, but I can't try to push them up. They will, pull in a different direction. And I had to reconcile that as well, which has, been a challenge for me individually.
I can jump in. So thank you. The comments really resonate with me also. So there's a couple of things is that, you're going to have to navigate situations and have emotional intelligence about who is going to give you opportunities and who's not, and figure out who your allies are. And there's just going to be some people that not going to open the door for you. So you're going to have to figure out the people that are in your support network and then build healthy and invest in those relationships. So build healthy, investable relationships. And I would do that globally. So one of the things I did wrong was not figuring out a way. And now you have technology. Now you can have a group call with all your brothers and your sisters who are in your support network every week if you wanted to. When you live overseas, you really got to be intentional about keeping and nurturing the relationships, and not just networks, the relationships you have in the United States. It's the biggest economy in the world. It's the most important political center in the world. And if you're going to turn your back on those relationships, you're going to regret that. So it's better to figure out a way that you and your friends from your network in the United States who are positive, as the brother mentioned, you're going to have to leave some negative people behind. You're going to have to leave some people that haven't bought into your God dream, haven't bought into what you're supposed to do with your life. And you're going to have to move on to the people who are going to support that journey. And the way you connect with those people is very intentional. Invest in those relationships, find out how you can help them. And that's what I would suggest is like very unique for our people, is that there's a whole continent that we were intentionally disconnected from. It was like a methodical effort to disengage your ability to pick and roll. So basically, we've been limited to the ISO play for everything that we do. So you got to learn how to run the pick and roll and the triangle offense again. You got to learn how to work with people. It's one of the things that we really struggle with as a community, is figuring out how to get a team attitude, a collaboration attitude, to figure out how you can bring other people along who want to come along on your journey. So that's what I think is unique to our international experience.
Okay, hi, this is Torian talking about some of the challenges, just focusing on, I think one of the most influential experiences in a young person's life to put them in the right direction to have a career which you can engage the globe is in college, right? We need to reconfigure some things in K through 12 to give more young people experiences. I know one time I was going to South Africa, and I saw a group of kids from Atlanta on the plane. They were like middle school kids, and they had a trip. They were probably at some private school, and it wasn't a public school, or maybe it was Rotary or something, but kids getting exposure early beyond just taking one or two years of Spanish or French or German or whatever the language is in the school. So exposure early. But then in the university setting, we need more Black men to go back and be the senior international officers at universities. And so that puts you in a space to have influence. And so there's a faculty. The faculty at universities may not be majority Black at the HBCU even, but these are the gatekeepers to allowing students to take courses and get credit so they can graduate on time. The director or vice president for student affairs, connecting with them to have influence. And so the co-curricular activities of the university will include hosting international students, service learning trips in different countries, or bringing, between academic affairs and student affairs, bringing foreign research scholars and having multiple projects so that the student that goes to your institution can not escape the fact that every subject matter on the campus being taught has global within that subject, right? And so I think these are very important. And the SIO is the one who is the lobbyist on the campus, pushing the board, pushing the president, pushing the provost, pushing all the faculty, pushing the person in residence life or dining services who doesn't understand why a person doesn't eat pork based on a religion, or why a person needs to have a prayer space 5 times a day because they have a different religion than you grew up with. And so we need competent people at the university to make the impact on young people so everything is exposed to them when they leave that campus. I'll be quiet.
Thank you for that, Torian. Love the direction of this conversation. I know we're at time. We did say 1:30, so we likely go slightly over a few minutes, but we did want to leave some room for participants that may have had a question that they wanted to ask. So if you have a question, you can type that into the chat, or you can unmute and ask your question.
I think they'd have to raise their hand and then we unmute them, or they can type it into the chat.
Okay. Felipe.
So that's Philip.
Okay.
Are you
Hello?
able to unmute? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for hearing all your stories was really inspiring, and hearing how all your journeys have differed and how your lives have, gone in different directions, but you've all managed to find, success is really inspiring. But I have a question. So I'm heading into my last year of university. So I'm going to graduate next year. And my main question was, after graduating, in your eyes, what are the ideal first steps? Because I have experience, not only working during my degree, but working internationally. So, as a student and as a new graduate, what should I look forward to, in what are the first things that I should look for in, building myself up and building my career in this field of global affairs?
I'm gonna jump in first and make it quick here. So I'm also the Fulbright scholarship advisor for Norfolk State. And so most of my students who are graduating in spring of 2025 are gearing up to apply for the English Teaching Assistant Program or the research program, in which Fulbright will pay for you to live in another country for 9 months to a year to work on a particular project. So Fulbright student program, Google that and look at the different programs you can apply for. Fulbright. Fulbright was a United States Senator post-World War II. He crafted a bill which was funded to promote the mutual understanding of people in different nations, right? And I'm a 3-time Fulbright scholar. There's tons of people in international education who've had that experience. And so I'm paying that forward to you to apply for that Fulbright scholarship. There's a budding relationship in China. We've been disconnected for a little bit. And so the brother Raphael can talk more about that, but there's all sort of opportunities if you're interested in certain regions of the world to apply for post-grad opportunities. Think about it. It's an exercise of soft power to allow fresh minds for the United States to engage fresh minds in other countries. So as you rise up in your areas of work and become leaders, you can connect and keep the peace later on. So they're looking for young leaders like you. So look at the opportunities and talk to your people at your campus. Thanks.
Okay. Does anyone else want to respond before we have to bring our panel to a close?
I'll just basically say network, be networking now. This is a great opportunity to get with people that are already working internationally. I actually, had I been a student right now, well, technically I am, I would actually try to find each one of these gentlemen on LinkedIn and then foster that relationship and see where it takes you. But opportunities are in people. So the more diverse people you know, the more diverse opportunities you have. And because you're getting ready to graduate, the best thing to do is now use your research-based mindset and start fostering relationships, and then let that take you to the next place.
I can just add in, I would spend less time drinking and partying and more time volunteering at events that are aligned with what you want to do. So if I want to do business in Africa, I'm emailing the organizers for the Harvard Africa Conference and for the Wharton Africa Conference and for Africa conferences. And I'm asking if I can volunteer just to be there. And when you get there, you have your digital card and you're just approaching people and figuring out how you can help them on their journey, because that's the best way to get mentors is to say, how can I help you? Not what can you do for me? So I would be focused and intentional, developing the relationships. I think that's a great thing to say, is foster relationships and commit to the process, because it's not about the outcome. If you start on a trajectory and you do the right things, God will take care of the rest.
Absolutely. And Raphael, Torian, have any?
Mine is super duper quick. Your first job is not your last job. You find out on your first job things that you do well, things you need to work on, how to connect, like Brother Brian said, and network. So it's all going to work out how it's supposed to. Don't put too much pressure on yourself with that first opportunity. And if you want to go global or international, you keep that at the front of your mind, because there'll be a lot of different opportunities and people pulling at you, but you have to be laser focused on what you want to do, and you only take opportunities that align with that goal. Anything else is a distraction. So just your first job's not your last job. Get in, land something, get the skills, get on somebody's radar that can track your progress and help. And that, like Marchand said, you can help them, and in turn, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the road, they'll say, I already know what I'm getting with him, and I want him to, be on my team in Zambia or Brazil or Beijing or wherever. And that's how it happens. So first job's not your last job.
I want to thank you all for such a candid, authentic, real conversation. Not only did we talk about global leadership, we talked about life, particularly as men, and how do we navigate the different challenges through mentorship, through the resources that we have afforded to us, but also giving back. So I want to thank you all for the impact that you had, not only on me, but all of the participants that are here today. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And now we're going to transition over to James as he helps close us out.